Hi everyone. A week or two ago, I was challenged to a debate by an anarcho-communist YouTuber on the labor theory of value in light of my TikTok response on the same topic. We had the discussion the week after, in which it was hard to understand what either of us was saying, and I stuttered quite a lot. Nevertheless, the debate was cordial and we did manage to agree on a lot, but we were stuck on a major point of contention at the end. Anyway, he posted a response to my TikTok video a day after, and I have to say, nice try. I'm pretty sure he made this before our debate, since he claimed I was lying, rather than being ignorant.
Here's Tharun Thiruseelan to lie about the labor theory of value and fail to debunk a TikTok giving an example of it.
But he usually says this stuff for effect, and is more scripted, so I wouldn't put too much emphasis on this. Regardless, this is a response to my video, which itself was a response to a TikTok. So I'll have to cut a bit of stuff, and I would encourage you to watch all the videos here in its entire context, and are all linked in the description along with my sources. The labor theory of value. What the heck is that? Well, it is the idea that the value of a product is derived from the average number of labor hours needed to produce said product. But since the 19th century, this theory has not been favoured by most mainstream economists.
Because they're not taught Marx.
And hopefully I don't get an aneurysm.
So I have this piece of paper that cost me 1 penny. If you wanted to buy it, I would sell it to you for 1 penny because that is its market value. Okay. I labored to turn that piece of paper into this crane. Okay. If the market value of this crane is $1, that means my labor created 99 cents of value. My labor is therefore worth 99 cents.
That seems fair. But keep in mind that the quote-unquote market value is derived from the demand of your product from customers, which will be very important later on.
This was Proletariat Brain's argument in favor of marginalism, and here's one of 2 points I want to make as to why it doesn't refute anything, nor is it relevant. Even if we were to take products that accumulate in market value with seemingly little labor put into it, like wine, for instance, there's still the maintenance, i.e. making sure it's not broken, the temperature is right, it's secure, there's no bacteria in it, stuff like that. Proletariat Brainlet simply refused to engage with this, boiling his argument essentially down to nuh-uh. Also, consumers representing some sort of abstract demand isn't what sets the value of products, because products aren't going to fall exactly congruently with what consumers demand in terms of their prices. Effort has to be exerted into a product to make it exist, otherwise it isn't priced if it doesn't exist.
When talking with Free, he basically claimed that the entire value of a good or service is derived completely from labor, whether from direct worker productivity or the workers building the capital machinery that created the product. While I somewhat agree with this, he forgot one factor of production: resources. If one labourer worked and used capital machinery to extract potatoes from the ground, while another labourer used the same amount of effort and same machine to extract mud from the ground, are both of these products equal in value? Of course not. But why? Both products have the same amount of labour used to extract them, because certain resources/materials are more valuable than others, regardless of labour, such as metal being more valuable than plastic for conducting electricity. Labour is an important part in manufacturing products, like wine, but there is a reason consumers are willing to drink wine but not mud. Hence, the combination of supply and demand sets the value of a product. A basic economic principle that even Marx understood, since he argues that each product of labour must have a use value. P.S. The labor theory of value isn't that popular, not because Marx wasn't taught, but because it doesn't take into account the value of resources.
Would it be fair for someone else who didn't do any work to take 90 cents from me just because I happened to make this crane in their house? No, of course not. That would basically be stealing.
Depends. Did you need that house in order to increase the market value of your product, or to make that product?
I'd assume that's what this TikToker is probably saying. It's a bad analogy on their end. I interpret this general idea to mean that the capitalist is giving them the means to produce the crane, i.e. the constant capital to produce the crane, even though the value of constant capital is generated via labor.
For example, a customer may be more attracted to go to your burger business if you are in a large physical restaurant with a comfortable eating space. They may not buy your burger if you are selling it from the streets. Moreover,
What begets the value of the restaurant's interior? Carpenters have to design the facility eloquently, and a decorator has to buy furniture from laborers to make the place look sophisticated. I can see elements of labor in pretty much every one of these examples capitalists bring up.
yet the wood is more important to the carpenter's product than mud, and cement is more important to the builder than grass. I can also see elements of materials and resources that are just as useful and important as labor. The owner's machinery and materials contributed to the market value of the product, significantly diminishing the product's labor value.
And what begets the value of the machinery and materials, both of which Marx calls constant capital? Labor had to be exerted into those commodities to produce their value. This is the quintessential Marxist critique of capitalists. Most of them just move money around in a portfolio and reap most of the profits.
What begets the value of the capital is labor and resources, and the right resources. You need sufficient market demand to figure out what society wants, as well as a capitalist who uses their intellect to figure out what materials will make the best product and retrieve them. You may say it is unfair for the owner to own the means of production, but the owner spent their own money on such useful means of production when they could have instead spent it on entertainment and consumer goods like the worker. The owner had denied themselves short-term satisfaction for a chance at long-term success. I will explain the extent of this phenomenon.
Again, you're omitting the simple fact that even the value of constant capital is produced by labor, most of whom are paid via wages.
Again, you seem to forget the valuable contribution of land to the constant rate of capital. In just a moment.
So you agree that wage labor is theft?
No, because business owners are not guaranteed a profit, while wage laborers are guaranteed wages via their legally binding...
That's just wrong. Your boss can choose to lower your wages at any time, revoke your medical and dental insurance at any time, extend your hours at any time, revoke PTO any time, and of course, fire you at any time.
Contracts. Actually, when it comes to wage reductions, if your hourly wages are already stated in legal contracts that were agreed upon prior, then the employer can't change your wages. Now, in cases where that doesn't happen, employers have the freedom to lower your wages, but that is also the same freedom that allows them to raise your wages. This same principle applies to medical insurance, dental insurance, working hour changes, and paid time off. Now, for firing people, most American employment is described as at will, where a worker can be fired for no reason and lost claims from this can be denied in court. However, employers don't have as much bargaining power as you'd think in this scenario, as it is pretty costly to fire and replace a worker. The average cost of losing an employee can be thousands of dollars, and that it takes on average 6 to 9 months of salary to recruit an employee. Businesses also have to worry about lower productivity when firing a worker. The cost of losing an employee is so high due to recruitment, training costs, lower employee morale, lost skills, lost institutional knowledge, and other factors. Not to mention that if there is a relatively low supply of your skill set, your boss would think twice before firing you. And businesses are a risky business.
Human traffickers take risks, hitmen take risks, terrorists take risks, Russia is taking what's probably the biggest risk in its history right now. Just because you're taking a risk doesn't mean what you're doing is ethical.
But when businesses take risks, they aren't hurting anyone and aren't extracting any surplus value, as I have shown. On average, businesses don't make a profit until the 3rd year, with few exceptions like companies with low overheads.
Hold up, let me find the world's smallest violin.
Within a year of starting a business, only 80% of American small businesses survive, and after 5 years, only half of small businesses still survive. 70% of these small businesses have outstanding debt, so when they most likely fail, as indicated by the data, they will still have to pay their debt that funded their failed business ventures. The worker, on the other hand, assuming they didn't start a business, did not have to sacrifice having an income for years, or have to pay business debts. To put it simply, workers have wage stability, which the owner doesn't have, so are justified in earning profit.
There are multiple things wrong with these claims. The first one is that, as we've proved, workers don't have wage stability due to the fact that one's living is entirely discretionary, i.e. the employer can revoke your employment at any moment. Second is that literally, what does any of this have to do with the fact that the prices of commodities are set by labor time? Why is it that whenever libertarians, excluding neoliberals besides just the facts, talk about the LTV, they pivot to the capitalist investment and surplus value extraction, which is what I think the TikToker's content was addressing.
Actually, workers do have wage stability, as I have shown that it's pretty expensive for an employer to fire a worker. And I was responding to a TikToker who falsely conflated the labor theory of value with surplus value, which multiple other Marxists have accidentally done, and we're responding to that. Speaking of wage stability, there is one point that Free didn't bring up in this video, but he did say to me in our debate, that the high business failure rates mean that workers suffer, since if their company goes out of business, then they are out of a job.
You just said that most small businesses fail within a few years. I mean, that only makes my argument for me, because a worker is going to be without a job once the business fails, and I wouldn't consider that being guaranteed a wage, because if your employer's profit margins are really unstable to the point where more than likely their business is gonna collapse in a few years, that is not stable employment, my friend.
While startups account for most of the growth in employment, businesses that are older than 10 years make up most of total employment. There are nearly 1 million American startups with 1 to 4 employees, but much fewer startups employ larger numbers of workers. In contrast, nearly 2 million businesses that are 10 years or older employ between 100 and 500 workers, with 4 million businesses older than 10 years employing 500 or more workers. This makes sense, since 86% of total employment in the private sector is by businesses that are 10 years old or more. This is relevant because the older your business is, the less likely the business failed, and the high rates of failure apply more to newer businesses, which have few workers. As you can see, the majority of workers are in older and more stable businesses, so are less likely to be in situations where the business fails and they lose their jobs, so maintain their wage stability.
Thiruseelan, you have utterly failed to prove that the prices of commodities are set by labor times, and you've also failed to justify the extraction of surplus value, which you've pivoted to. Thus, the LTV has stood strong and continues to have not been repudiated.
No, no, and no. I am going to be busy for quite a while, so we'll be posting less for the time being, and instead focus more on streaming, Rumble, and my Samseda subreddit, which you can check out below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give a like and comment, as it really helps my video in the YouTube algorithm. And if you like economics and political commentary, consider subscribing. Maybe follow me on my Twitter, and see you later.